Hi there, and welcome to Cosmic Soul Alignment. And my guests today are Elinor, Moshe, and Daniel Darman, soul partners, transformation guides, and founders of Truth of You, a multidimensional practice that helps people peel back the layers of identity to discover who and what they really are. And after a QHHT session in Queensland, everything started to fall into place for them, and they are here to tell us all about it. So welcome, Elinor and Daniel.
Thank you, Dawn.
Lovely to see you. Can we just dive in, really? Just tell us, Elinor, if you don't mind, what led you to that past life regression session in Queensland? I mean, was there a sense that something bigger was calling you?
Absolutely. After being on the path, and still we are on the path, I was jumping between all sorts of modalities, and whilst they all had something to offer, there was still a knowing that there was something deeper that wasn't being touched, that was not able to be accessed in, a simple 2-hour this or 1 hour that, which all had value as to where I was. And Daniel it was late 2022 where he posited the concept of QHHT, and I remember reaching out to a practitioner here, but it didn't align, it didn't stick. And he had one, I think mid 2023 or something like that. He can speak to his own experience, but I was very actively sharing with Daniel, like every time I would go to somewhere and how I would feel and all sorts of things. And I started my podcast and I interviewed a regressionist, and she was interstate, and I just knew. I'm like, this is it. This is her. I need to experience this, because I also had a channeling session with her previously, and it was very powerful. So I messaged Daniel like, hey, how do you feel about, and I, posited as an optional, but it was more like an obligation. And he said yes, and he happily came along. And it was needing to go very deep with, why are some problems still here? It's like you see other people that do, a few breathwork things, or they do a few of XYZ, and life moves for them. And for both of us, given where we were at the time, it was simply not moving, not shifting. Maybe that was the ego getting in the way, or, things of that nature. And yeah, we planned the trip, and, it was getting close. We were planning and really looking forward to it. And Daniel had the regression first. And the day that we landed, we had a tarot reading at a market, and they revealed that we have a past life together where we were both lovers, and we died at the stake. But we died together, but not by accident. I just blew the ending. I was on the stake for something that I did that Daniel took the fall for, which he found out during his regression. But the day that Daniel had the regression, he can speak to his own experience. Mm-hmm. And that's really when things shifted.
Yeah, so basically, as Elinor mentioned, I've been exploring. I've been on the path since about 2016, and so I had a regression, and it was interesting because I was very interested. I was very much an armchair philosopher, you might call me back then, and so I was always on the sidelines, looking in from the outside. And what really surprised me was doing a QHHT session in 2023 was something I almost failed, because I simply just couldn't relax and allow myself to visualize. Mm-hmm. Now, I've spent most of my life struggling to visualize, so it's sort of ironic that we find ourselves now with QHHT playing such a big role, because it's very visual heavy in most cases. But still, what I experienced was really a lot of loss, a lot of heaviness. It was quite a depressing kind of session, but it was exactly what I needed, because there was a lot of catharsis in that. So then when it came around to, after that, Elinor was getting really close, especially by the time she asked me to come to Queensland. And so the second time around, I knew exactly what it was going to be like. I knew what to expect, because I wasn't really given much information prior. And so I was able to go a lot deeper. And so I was able to get 5 lives in this session, all like male, all very powerful masculine men, but in a way that was also shown in a very healthy manner. I grew up from a divorced family with all women. And so masculine influence is one that I didn't even realize how much I was just lacking a point of reference for what masculine energy should look like and feel like. And so with that as well, we were also further confirmed on our story, and basically, yeah, I was being tortured at the stake for something that Elinor had done, but I'd taken the fall for because we were lovers in that life, and I was ready to die for it, but not just die. I was going to be tortured. So they had the whole pyre all set up and everything, and they were going to do this over, you know, I want to say like 3 days or so. That's sort of what it felt like. And then she basically, in the anguish of watching me go through this, she lit the whole thing on fire and jumped in, and we died in each other's arms. And it was a real sort of Romeo and Juliet sort of story there. But back to the 5 lives as men, basically I just got this enormous download, just living these experiences. We think, you know, it's reliving past lives is not like a dream. It's not like you just watch what happens, or it was incredibly visceral and very close to my essence. And so when we were getting a healing script read while I was still in that state, I was zoning out from it. It didn't matter. It didn't really mean anything because something else was happening. And what I'd describe as heart walls started coming down, and all that was there was just this energy radiating so loud of just love for Elinor that, again, it's not just this life, but I was feeling it in this life. And everything else that was said, it was just inconsequential in that moment, because it's something that, even though we were close friends, I don't think either of us really consciously had felt those feelings. And so even learning the way the heart can close up was something that was the real takeaway from the session. And so basically within 4 hours after the session, we found ourselves in a relationship, which surprised me like crazy, because I realized in that moment on the table in the regression, it's like, oh crap, like, am I going to risk my entire friendship of 4 years over a question like this? We've just come on holidays and it's our second day here. I can't put it all on the chopping block right now. I can't do that to her. I'm okay with the rejection, but I didn't feel it was right to sort of, let's go on a holiday as friends and then do the, I like you more than that. Do you want to try something? And so, yeah, there was a real sort of gambit, but basically the afterglow of my higher self still being present basically ran the show, and we were just sitting there talking that night, and it just started moving that way. And basically my ego was like whimpering inside, going, like, what are you doing? like you can't be, you're going through with this now. But higher self took the reins, and it was one of the best experiences ever, really, looking back. But it was one that true surrender to the moment basically allowed everything to flow. And we're in a relationship, yeah, as I said, 4 hours after the session, but it was less than 3 hours after that I slipped out the "I think I'm in love with you" line. So there was just so much that I just was not expecting to come through, even outside of the session, that just it still blows my mind today, even just reliving the story.
Divine intervention then, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Everything was working very hard. We were the last 2 people to realize we were in love with each other. And this was, for some people, relationships come easy, go easy. They're not concerned. But for us, this seemed truly impossible from where we were and who we were and the dynamics that we found ourselves in. So experiencing reality shifting in a moment. And of course, we did a lot of work up to that point, but we found that, regression offered a chance to connect very deeply, because you are quite deep. For me, I forget that I'm Elinor. For Daniel, his experience is different. He's still present, but it's that.
I'm a stickler like that.
Yeah. It truly shifted our reality. And we say, like, we want to move unconscious mountains. We want to let go, but we don't know what we're holding on to. How do you access that? And that's where the right tool for the right job can assist people on the path with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel then that, I'm assuming that the 2 of you were doing your own healing update? Did you do the healing separately, or were you doing it together as friends before that session?
Side by side, I would say.
Side by side.
Yeah.
I would just go and try something. Hey, I'm going to this. I'll let you know how it is. And Daniel would be available to straight away help me integrate, help me contextualize, help me stretch, bend it. I was working with a Jungian and astrology kind of, shadow work coach, and that's what the tools that she used. And after every session, I would speak to Daniel, and we would go even deeper for 3.5 hours, and he learned astrology by himself because he's like, I want to know what this is about. Mm-hmm. And I would do something, then he would go and delve into something mystical, and we would keep on bringing that back to each other, and that really afforded us the opportunity to open up deeply to each other. And that's not something that we know how to do, ever felt safe to do. It's always, I know for me, it's always boomerang back. You always waited for the shoe to drop when you shared something, or people would take that and think, well, what does this mean for me? It's like, hello, I'm sharing a deep wound here. And that was never the case with Daniel.
Wow. So has then your love deepened your access to spiritual truth, or is it vice versa?
Both. I think they dance and they swirl hand in hand. It's
I think of the caduceus, the snakes support each other to climb the staff. It's working in tandem.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because you have that love, you want to be more conscious in your relating with yourself. And because our energy is so intertwined, the more that I open up, the more that Daniel does it. When he explores different dimensions and brings that back, then again, it is that upward spiral energy that is really important to us.
Yeah. Okay, can we talk a little bit about QHHT then? So what is it, firstly? And secondly, how is it different from other types of hypnosis or regression therapy from your perspective?
Yeah, of course. So Dolores Cannon, she was an American hypnotherapist, and she was doing work in the 1960s and accidentally took one of her clients a little too deep into trance, and she stumbled into a past life. So this was unknown in middle America back in the 1960s. So she did more work with her to publish her first book, 5 Lives Remembered, and then spent 40 years refining the technique and working with other hypnosis practitioners, but then recognized that everyone has the capacity to do this. And in some cases, those without training are better because you don't have to unlearn everything you already have. And so she changed the name from past life regression to quantum healing hypnosis technique because she expanded it to do more than just access past lives. And so even though by getting you into a state which, if you know anything about neuroscience, it's the theta brainwave. It's the state where your awareness is between waking and sleeping. That state is very much tapped into to connect with what she calls your subconscious, what others refer to as your higher self, or even your oversoul in some cases. Mm-hmm. And so this type of session is not in and out, we'll see you next week, 1.5 hours. This is usually 4 to 6 hours per session, and it's really a one and done. You come in for one, with one set of goals. If it can be achieved in the one session, you should be able to get it all resolved, cleared, and basically sometimes repaired, sometimes let go, depends what you're after, without needing to come back. I think of it as taking a car this is sort of a male analogy, but taking your car to the mechanic and they pull apart the entire engine. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to change what you need when the engine's fully apart, but if you're just trying to change the timing belts, it's not easy to do to get to it. And so these sessions are longer and they're much more of a deep dive where we get to know you, your whole life. It's come spill it all. Really, we're also trained to identify that, certain patterns in your behavior and habits and things that play out that people might not necessarily tap into as well on their own. And then so when we then induce and then go into hypnosis, it's a long session, typically 2 hours. We're able to, with our knowledge and training, is able to guide clients exactly where they need to go to basically sometimes release attachments, sometimes find things like I mentioned with my regression in Queensland, the 5 male lives that I wasn't expecting to show up. But my unconscious knew that's exactly what I needed in that moment, especially for a relationship. It's like, you want to be in a relationship as a man, you have to know what a man is. And let's just say the world, I mean, they're pretty good at telling you what men shouldn't be, but they're not very great at telling you what they should be. And so after the regression, we reacclimatize you back here, who you are again, and what does all of it mean? And, in the grand scheme of this life, because the regressions that you experience aren't done, like the lives you explore aren't in a vacuum. And so even when we bring in the subconscious for a conversation, people typically bring questions as well. So we get to basically explore, did I choose, did I choose my children, and what did I come here to, when we had them, what did we want to learn from them, and what do they want to learn from us? And anything, we get simple mundane questions of, should I change my career, to where are my soul, like where's my origins, which star system do I come from? And they have the answers within. We don't channel or receive it for them. We just help guide them. And so after the session, many people remember what they said, although that typically tends to fade, like waking up from a dream in the morning. You don't typically remember it, 30 minutes after. So we make sure that it's recorded and we send you a copy as well. And that's something that we're also trained to do. All QHHT practitioners, to make sure that clients can re-listen, because especially in the few days after the session, re-listening is incredibly powerful because there is an afterglow effect. We've opened you right up. And so there is a lingering energy of your unconscious or your subconscious or your higher self that continues to still transmit to you. And so re-listening to it, especially in those few days after, really have a profound effect.
Okay. So, Elinor, can you walk us through the structure of a session? From somebody sitting down saying, right, okay, I'm ready. What are the steps that you take them through?
Of course, there's 3 pillars for a successful session. The first is relaxation, and look at how today's world is wired. People, it's so hard to let go of the human you. And I've had this, and we have all experienced this. When we go into a session, you're not really present because the phone, the bills, the work, there's something.
Picking up the kids at
2:30, hard stop.
Your mind is off. Yeah. Chaotic mind.
But that doesn't allow the body to relax. So it's, what you do on the day is important, but what you do leading up to the day is also really important. Just making sure that your affairs are in order for the day. You have the space. You've mentally decluttered. Your body knows how to relax. For someone who's never meditated and never relaxed and is a, chronic smoker or whatever it is, it's like, this is not going to be a fantastic experience.
It can take up to half an hour longer just to get them under.
Yeah.
To wind them down.
So relaxation is key. Imagination. And that doesn't always mean visuals. For some people, it can be very vivid images if you are experiencing that. But there's sensations. There's things that are happening outside of even our awareness of our senses. And the third pillar is trusting the process, that whatever is meant to come through on the day is what is meant to come through on the day. But if you're feeling a sensation, or if you're wanting to say something, but it's maybe not something that you say in your everyday conversation, whatever it is, you trust whatever happens. And trusting also means letting go of the character that is Dawn, the character that is Elinor, to make more space for the other parts and just giving them the microphone for a little bit. So the interview that we talk to people, we locate them. What's happening? What is it like to be you? Why, we really need to understand the map of the territory of who we're speaking to, because when they go under, we want to be able to navigate that. And then it is the induction process. So it's like going to bed. Don't do what I do. And the last time Daniel put me under, I ran to the bed. I was so excited to be hypnotized. It's like, yeah, that doesn't work. It's like you're going to bed. You're starting to wind down. You're allowing the body to relax, and you kind of, you start to drift off per se. And we induce, and we typically go through lives first. People experience all sorts of different things. It's not just a human life. There's different dimensions. You experience color, you experience sound, you experience the animal kingdom, like there's infinite aspects as to what can come through. And then we induce the higher self. So, we put the character aside, and this is when we ask the questions. And questions that people would battle with for decades. Should I be married to my husband? Or is my wife my soulmate? Or is this my career? Like things that people really spin and loop and try to figure out with their conscious faculties. The higher self will just answer just like that. And the way that it comes through, there is such a sharpness and a profundity, and it lands. And as Daniel, he came up with the term, like from that state, it's so obvious. And that's why re-listening to it is important, because you're connecting to that part of yourself that knows. So, why the lives were shown. Any questions or aspects of self that people want explored, then we do that. And depending on the person, some people want scripts read out to them, and that goes straight into the subconscious. And we bring them out. And the first question we ask is, how long do you think you were gone for? And some are like, half an hour maximum. It's like, it's been 2.5 hours. And there's no sense of time. Like, time doesn't exist in that domain as we know it now.
I'll just quickly add, with connecting to your subconscious or your higher self, it's, how do I say it? It's like all intuition and no ego at all. And that's why, like, those who linger or try and, like, stay in the game, it's like, I want to be here for this. Even that, like, as Elinor mentioned, trusting the process. Being able to go, well, I might just dissolve into someone else. That's okay. That's what the recording's for.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great when the ego's out the way, if you could get that out the way all the time, because I think that's the biggest block that we've got, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We love our stories and we love our suffering.
Yes, that is very true. I mean, do you have to, believe in past lives or other lives or even spirituality for this to work?
I mean, if anyone ever wants to answer that question for themselves, have you ever had a dream at night? If you can dream, if you can actually perceive something that is either a different version of you or something else altogether, then this is really just as simple as that. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, really. You can science it, and there are people sciencing it, and I love that part of it. But at the same time, it's about being able to just let yourself explore. I had one client who, when I was training, I was trying to get family and friends in, and some people are like, I don't really believe this. And it's like, look, I get it. I know what you're like, but would you be willing to give it a shot? And just trust anything that comes through. And he had a perfect session. Mm-hmm. And it was wonderful. So if people rigidly want to hold on to their beliefs, we're not going to fight their free will. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if they're willing to just come with an open mind and just, as Elinor mentioned, trust the process, anything can come up, then they're the people that have the best experiences. If you can just believe in yourself and just believe that it's possible for a day. Yeah,
absolutely. Trust in the whole thing. Totally understand that. So what are some of the most common things and the most surprising things that clients discover in sessions?
The obvious things are, you want your hygiene, like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What's my
golden question? What am I here? What am I here to do?
What am I here to do? How does that reflect into career? Money comes up often, obviously, in today's society, and relationships with others. So, if it's a great relationship, people want to explore that deeper. But if there's a certain friction or problems, and people bring that. So career, relationships, and finances is conventional. That comes up often, as well as physical ailments. That back problem that never goes away, that skin issue, like, those kinds of, they're the four that typically come up. And then I think you should share the monkey story.
The monkey story. I won't speak to... Well, okay, since you've mentioned it, I had one client who... I actually feel you tell this story better than I do.
Okay, so it was Daniel's session, but I really like it because it's something that you won't make this up in your day-to-day conversation. we were past life lovers or whatnot. Like, not that that's made up, but we're making everything up anyway. Anyway,
but it's an easy story to attach to as well.
Yeah.
It's so great. But some stories are quite startling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this client had, all things going well. He was, quite aware, had a growing sense of awareness, deep exploration, but there was a level of intrusive thoughts that he was having, which he knew was unnatural. So what that stemmed from was there was a life where he experienced as a monkey, and he caused a lot of disturbance to the tribe.
He was an orphan and he wasn't supported in any way. So he was outcasted and would go into the tribe and steal their stuff when they were out. And because he was quite agile, he could climb the highest tree and they couldn't reach him.
Okay.
So they cursed him. And curses, hexes, vows, contracts, these all carry across lifetimes unless they are transmuted. Until they're, experienced and transmuted. And that was, where a lot of that was coming from. So Daniel asked, well, how do you even deal with this? And the advice was feed the monkey. And Daniel was like, no, but how do you deal with this? It's like, feed the monkey. It's like, no, literally go and feed the monkeys. And, we think it's so complicated, or we have to do this, 10-night howling at the moon ritual or something like that. But that's an example where something that it seems so simple in that life, it seems inconsequential, but there was a lingering effect. There's other cases of, the couple that today has problems. They murdered each other across lifetimes previously. And now this one, this life is not retribution, that's not the right term, but they're sort of paying back the karma from that life with this person. And that's why they keep on coming back.
And they play opposite roles too. So it's not always, you only play one half. Like the law of rhythm. You'll get to be the perpetrator and the victim. Don't worry. You'll get to play all parts of the game. Mm-hmm. But I'd say, I also had a few clients that had done a lot of their own shadow work and inner work as well. And those who are quite experienced almost effortlessly can go far deeper than those who have never meditated, never relaxed before. And I've had one that I could only describe as a mystical experience where she ended up in the divine spark, the seed of the divine itself. And she got to just like radiate in the pure white energy of the divine before coming back basically spiritually purified. And, Elinor mentioned things between lives. Sometimes it gets dark. I had one client who she had done a lot of shadow work and she had a very rough upbringing, but she actually identified that essentially there was a shadow figure that was following her between incarnations, sabotaging her life. Mm-hmm. And she was able to confront him and banish him completely. And she, although she had done work for years, it wasn't until she went this deep that she could actually identify the cause of what we might call the external challenges that were being imposed on her as well.
Mm-hmm. So when you say she was able to, go that deep, and then she was able to banish the shadow, mm-hmm. How does that work?
Well, you encounter it as a character, but this character carries, say, an aura, or there's a theme, or there's an energy. And this was I wouldn't just say it's sort of a masculine, but it was almost more demonic in its nature as well. It wanted to cause harm and pain. And so its actions was more reflective of that of a masculine energy. But because she was able to, in this state, basically pinpoint, localize it, and hold it within her awareness, she was able to analyze it essentially and understand who and what it was relative to her. Now, she doesn't know when it started. All she was able to catch on was that it was there in a previous life, and it basically it even caused what do you call it? Almost like a forced abortion, almost. Mm-hmm. Like she was going to be a mother in that life, and it interrupted and caused major health issues. But basically it was still happening. Things were still happening in this life, but because she was able to bring it back and hold it, the higher self was able to, bring it back to be judged. And essentially, what would this client like done with this entity that keeps hanging and lingering around in her field and causing problems. And that's when basically the higher self collaborated with the ego in that state and said, should we just get rid of it? And the answer was absolutely. I never want to see this thing again. And in that state, wishing something away and banishing is simply as easy as a thought. So, we found that much deeper work can be done much more easily from this state that even those on the path really can't access when their ego is still in the way.
Okay, so quick question around that then. So just take money blocks, for example. If somebody wants to find out, because I know that's very common, if somebody wants to find out why they just can't make the money or hold on to it, does this session, does it take them to, I suppose, an experience that they've had in one of their lives? Or can it take them down, an ancestral line or a collective line? Is that possible?
It can, but it doesn't always. I don't often see lives where money, finances, or just abundance as a theme is a major central pillar, because it's usually a question that people bring for the higher self. So the higher self usually is, let's show you something else, because we know that question is going to be answered during the dialogue.
Okay.
And so this is something like for ourselves, we both carry vows from past lives of not necessarily poverty, but it's blocking abundance. And so even Elinor, we asked, can that be released right now? And Elinor's higher self in the session said, absolutely. And it did it. And then it's like, okay, can you remove it for me too? I give you permission to clear my vows here on it. And Elinor's higher self basically said, no, we can't do that because you've contracted to clear that yourself in this life. And so that's
told
the thing
you what you had to do. That was great.
Yeah. You've chosen to make this work that you have to do for yourself. There's no shortcuts here. Go find where you've actually made that vow and go get rid of it yourself. Don't try and use us to sort of short circuit the process. So that's the challenge that I want to say I face with even this work itself. But I was very specifically set up my life like that. So even getting the answers to know that I've set it up in this way as well has also made it easier to even know how to approach these situations too.
Excellent. Okay. Now's a good time. We're going to have a quick break. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi there, welcome back to
Good to be back. I should apologize. Unfortunately, Eleanor's had to pop out, so I'll have to finish this episode myself.
All right. Okay. Daniel.
Yes.
I'm looking for some transformative stories using QHHT. Say that with my teeth in. So can you give us some really transformational stories?
I still remember when I was doing my training and Dolores was speaking to the power of this work as well, especially to older clients with, say, failing health. She mentioned one story where a lady came in and the higher self was talking about her knee issues and how she had knee reconstruction. And even though she was getting, I think it was non-steroidal anti-inflammatory injections, the actual kneecap itself was still eroding. The cartilage around it was still eroding. And so basically Dolores turns around and goes, so what are you going to do about it? You're the higher self. You can do everything. You're animating this entire physical vessel. And it was weird because the higher self basically had to, well, I need to talk to a few people. Give me a moment. And goes, okay, we can pull cartilage from other areas to restore the kneecaps. And they actually fully repaired and restored the kneecaps to what they were in a functional manner. And they said the only thing we can't get rid of are these rods, or there's some metal in here that we can't get rid of, because obviously when you get reconstruction, you get pins put in.
Yeah.
And so, there was one story as well where there was a lady that came in who had always needed to urinate and go to the bathroom. And so with that, basically, it was determined that when she was a child, she wasn't getting the attention. She was getting neglected. And so, especially when they were on the road, she started to demand that attention unconsciously by needing to go to the bathroom. And so that actually kept her bladder the size of a child. Now, this woman was in her 40s. And so for that reason, they were able to understand and connect with why she still needed to go to the bathroom every, say, 45 minutes as a full-grown adult, and that her bladder was literally the physical size of a child. And so they were actually able to expand and form new muscle connections to the tendons to be able to grow the bladder on the spot.
So that was done right away. It wasn't over a period of time.
Well, they did most of it, but they said the rest of it, like we've put the sort of framework in place, the rest of it will restore and it will grow to its natural adult size over the next few days. And so even with a session like Elinor, we've had ones where we tend to think a lot of the time that we live good lives, good upbringings, and we don't really connect from a very subjective experience the way our child damages and warps us from our true essence before we come here. Because when you're born into this world, you're really being initiated into this dimension and the way things are run. Yeah. There are already systems in place. There are already people with rules and games set up that you have to fall in line for as a means of survival. Mm-hmm. And that's on the cosmic level, that's on the planetary level, that's also in the household level. And so a lot of us, as a part of our survival, start falling into the rules of the family. What do mum and or dad say? And that's gospel. This is why a lot of people think of the creator, source, God, whatever you want to call it. They always think it's of a parental archetype. You're thinking, I was raised Roman Catholic, and so we always thought of God as a man, and we even speak of God as him. I've experienced that differently. It's gender is really just a construct that just holds no value or energy there. But even the construct of how we think of the divine as something as limited as gender really itself is something that can be quite damaging for it's not even just our chakras and our aura, but it can even resonate down to the soul architecture. So lived experiences, this happened just recently because Elinor and I perform regressions on each other almost weekly now. It's a lot of fun where we don't really explore too many past lives, but we bring the higher self in. We need guidance on this. What are we doing now? What are we missing in our life? And, what are we doing next? And having memories come up, even in this life, because the higher self can bring in stuff and parts that we need to know as well. She had memories in this, memories that she didn't even know or remember from childhood. And the way it hit her, the energy was so strong that she basically had a full body catharsis and release. And, she was crying, she was shaking, all of these things. And what actually happened, if you might say it objectively, it's like, yeah, well, we all go through our own version of that. But that's not the way the body experiences it. That's not the way the soul experiences it. It has a subjective experience that also needs to be processed. And so this very much feeds on the book by Bessel van der Kolk, if you've heard it, The Body Keeps the Score.
I've heard of The Body Keeps the Score. I haven't read it, but yes, I'm aware of it.
Phenomenal book. And it really describes the way that we think we can intellectualize and objectify a lot of our experiences and think of it in a way that's quite, it's not that bad because others have it worse. Mm-hmm. But the body doesn't care how others have it. The body experiences it the way it does. And we process our feelings and our emotions through the body. And that's where a lot of stress, tension, and even trauma gets stored in the physical body. And this is where, even through QHHT, we're able to identify, once you've done enough regressions or even studied, the occult science of the way energy and the body work, think of something like alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And we think of those that drink alcohol as getting angry. Why? Not all people who drink alcohol are angry. But it's very common to very easily store anger in the liver, for example. So those who have liver issues, do you have unprocessed anger? That's just a very common one. Or if we think of something like the kidneys, what do? They filter out. And so they purify the blood. And so if you have kidney issues, what aren't you detoxifying? Maybe you've got a horrible boss, or a family member who's just piggybacking and mooching off everyone, or something that's poison to yourself that isn't getting removed. And so there's all these links that we can make. And once you sort of understand the language of the higher self, the pattern is very obvious. Mm-hmm. We look at skin, people who have issues, breakouts, even after, say, puberty, for example, even though breakouts in puberty aren't, I don't want to say they're necessarily natural. They're common, but I wouldn't say they're healthy or natural. Mm-hmm. But what does the skin do? It's your outward expression to the world. Everyone can see it. And so it's one that we've been able to identify and then connect it back to, say, certain emotions or thoughts or even past life ties, because that's another one as well. Birthmarks typically have a relationship to a past life injury or wound, for example, as well. And so I personally haven't seen or even had a client that's come in that's mentioned birthmarks, but I have read somewhere that other practitioners have been able to heal birthmarks through this work as well.
That's interesting. Very interesting. So have you ever had, a session that, I suppose, challenged your beliefs or opened you up to something that's entirely new?
I sort of want to be a bit hubristic here and say no, because I consider myself, especially when I started coming into this work, became very open-minded. I mean, even just going back to my upbringing, raised Roman Catholic, that closed me off very quickly. And then I became an atheist at 10 when my parents divorced. And so I began questioning a lot of things, but still within the systems and frameworks of the way the world had set it up. But when I began on the path and learning the way, banking works, I got into the cryptocurrency space and thought, well, what even is money then? What is the role the banks play? Learning the way government works and then funding, overseas wars, and then understanding the way that this also plays into non-physical dimensions like the astral realm and the way that energies and entities can even influence our thoughts as well. We had one client that I learned a very potent lesson, and that was, this is probably the closest I could say off the top of my head that would come to challenging my beliefs. But the higher self clarified we had to do an entity removal. And this was not a happy entity to leave. I will say you that. We needed the help of Archangel Michael to get rid of this one and send it back to source. But the higher self left a very important lesson. And it's if you want to know if something else is influencing and driving your own perceptions, thoughts, and emotions, think of someone who might say, I'm not worthy, or I don't deserve this. It's very common. You hear it like that, and you're like, okay, that's them saying it to themselves. But what a lot of people don't pay attention to is it you saying, I'm not worthy? Or are you hearing, you're not worthy? Is it in first or second person? Because there are very subtle hints here that, if you know how to pick up on them, mean a world of difference. And so this is why a lot of people who might be struggling with their own inner battles, sometimes it is just with parts of yourself that aren't integrated. And then sometimes they're actually attached energies that aren't part of you, that need clearing. And so I would say that one was quite a big one that I wasn't prepared for, because energy attachments and entities were one that I had an idea for, but to see it in real time actually getting in the way and blocking a client's ability to engage in the session, I think of it as like what we tend to get through in those specific cases are colors physically blocking their third eye's vision, or a ring or a hum that is so distracting that they actually can't hold their focus. Mm-hmm. So I would say that there was maybe a lack of belief in, I would say my belief before was it's all you anyway. But I would say situations like this showed me very much and very quickly that no, that is not always the case. Okay. In other realms and dimensions of our being, there can be things that latch on in the way that, if you go swimming in the local creek, you might get a leech attached to you. Mm-hmm. And that's not you. It can also happen in these other realms as well.
So just out of interest then, that entity you were talking about, was that able to be released?
Yes, it was.
That's what you want to hear, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, they're not.
Be gone.
You have to approach it with love, though, because there's different types. Sometimes, and these are the real sort of like, they're pulling your heartstrings ones. Sometimes entities are just disembodied souls of family and friends who have died, but they haven't left this realm and they don't know where to go. They're lost, they're scared, and this is the only thing they know how to do. And so even helping to bring them to awareness that you've already passed on, it's time to leave. They're the easy ones because all they need is just to be pointed in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes there's other types of energies. They might just be neutral energies that just come in because, as most people know, nature abhors a vacuum. Every part will be filled with something. And when we have holes in our aura, then energies will just come in. And sometimes it's, it's like a squatter. And it's just like, okay, fine. Like, if you're telling me to go, I'll go. So this is where it's also important when you do this work to make sure that you're reclaiming and returning the energy that's meant to exist there within their aura. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes there can be dark energies and attachments as well. You might think of demonic attachments. This is where we think of like exorcisms and stuff. The Hollywood really did it a bit of a disservice because they're not as dramatic or as scary as that in any way. But the way I've really experienced them is they are just there to prevent the session going the way it needs to. And so usually, we basically protect ourselves. We protect the client further. Mm-hmm. We assert that, they're a sovereign being, and we send it love and we send it back to source. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they are quite large. They're quite entrenched. They've been there sometimes decades. Mm-hmm. And even the client might have difficulty being able to push it away from them. And so this is where even calling in, I've found in my experience, calling upon Archangel Michael to help do the work, because sometimes the client and then even just our guidance isn't enough.
So these, just quickly, the entities then and attachments, are they just something that has is obtained in the current lifetime, or can that go back ancestrally?
That's a good question, actually, because I've only known them to be sort of present in this life. The soul carries the imprint that can allow for weakness and holes to occur within our energy field, our aura, and then even, in our physical body. If you get a cut and it opens up, you better cover it up quickly and disinfect it. Otherwise, you're going to get stuff growing in there. And that's how you get other types of health issues and eventually amputations.
Okay. All right.
So, but in my experience, they do only come through for the current lifetime.
Current lifetime. That's interesting to know.
Exist. But this is a bit deeper. I'm still educating myself, but I don't want to speak with confidence to attempt to answer that one.
That's okay. That's from your current perspective. That's all we need. Absolutely. Another question I wanted to ask, have you ever had a client then that has resisted the truth that's been revealed in the session that you're giving them, and how would you help them with that?
I think further clarity needs to be put around, and parameters need to put around like resisting the truth, because I would say that those that don't follow the pillars, as Elinor mentioned before, they can't trust the process. Really, that is resisting the truth.
Yes, I suppose I was meaning like the disbelief of something that they have visualized during a session.
Yeah. I would say also another one is not necessarily, they might allow the visuals through, but then, and I remember still when I was training and I was doing an online session through a different modality as well, because we also offer Beyond Quantum Healing, which is a similar modality through one of Dolores Cannon's students. And Dolores was not too fond of the internet back in her day. And so she only allowed for in-person sessions. But one of her key students, Candace Crawl-Goldman, developed an online version that very much transforms what QHHT is into something else. And I was doing one of these sessions, and because I was still very early in my training for QHHT as well as Beyond Quantum Healing, helping protect her space I don't believe it was done properly. And I think she was still very logical and not so much not trusting of the process, not trusting of herself. And so even when we brought in her higher self, she couldn't fully trust the answers were hers. And the higher self was attempting to come through, and then she was getting spoken on top of or interrupted or even just going silent midway through an answer. So I would say that, it's more them getting in their own way because they either want to be there, either they don't trust it fully, or they don't even, it really, as I said, connecting to our higher self is like in all intuition with no ego.
Yeah.
And so
it's all about trusting yourself, isn't it? I mean, if we got out of our own way, things would flow a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
basically in a nutshell. Okay. Well, Daniel, thank you. It's been a lovely conversation. I'm sorry Elinor had to dash out, but it's been lovely chatting.
And we apologize for that.
Oh, no problem. So to the viewers, Elinor and Daniel are living proof that when you're willing to explore the truth of who you are, everything, love, freedom, and purpose, it falls into alignment. So if this conversation stirred something within you, tune in next week. And until then, just keep seeking, keep questioning, and trust that truth is always trying to find you. Thank you, Daniel. Lovely to have you. And take care.
Thanks for being here.
Blessings.